Tuesday, actually this week's edition of the Yamhill Leadership Roundtable. And with us today, we have Takesha Wydrow from the Sheridan Revitalization Committee and the Sheridan Chamber of Commerce. I'm Commissioner Casey Kula. We have Scott Cooper from McMinnville Economic Development Partnership. We have Abisha Stone from SEDCOR. We have Kelly Menke, the Council President for the City of McMinnville. We have Mayor Rick Rogers from Newburgh. And we have Kenna West, City Manager for Willamina, and on behalf of the West Valley Chamber of Commerce. Thank you all for joining us today. And I wanted to get started. Typically, I don't say anything until the end, or I give us little bits. But I did want to note that we're seeing some fairly significant levels of community spread, or what we call sporadic spread of coronavirus. And the original intention of this gathering was to get folks together to provide accurate, credible, and timely information. And so that's a piece of that, is that we're now at 49%, 49.2% sporadic spread of coronavirus. So new cases, nearly half of them in Yamhill County, don't have a discernible source case that we can trace to and find out about. One reason that's significant is that we can't slow down the spread when we can't find everybody that you're connected to with a new positive case. The other thing that's concerning from an economic perspective is that the more sporadic spread that we have, the more likely the state of Oregon is to put us onto the watch list or consider the county for further steps backward. And I'm not trying to spread any rumors here, so that's why we're just saying things, is that it is concerning to have high levels of community sporadic spread. We bumped up from 45 new cases per 100,000 last week to 58 new cases per 100,000 people this week, with a 7.7% positivity rate. So all of those things together point to an increase in the transmission of the virus in our community, rather than a slowing down or a stabilizing influence. So I just want to put that out there, that the virus is still with us, and it seems to be spread through uncertain avenues. We do know that across the state, informal gatherings seem to be the largest source of known transmissions. So with that sour and dour news, I'd like to welcome everybody, and I'm going to invite you to share what you'd like to share with the community. And then I might put a few things in there, like I would love to hear Mayor Rogers talk about the mill site changing hands, because I get questions all the time about it, and I'd love to have you address some of them if you can. So with that, Mayor Rogers, what would you like to tell people in the community today? And I'd just like to note that we also have Senator Roblan with us.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Kula. Thank you so much. Good to see everyone. Thank you to the good folks in Newburgh. I mean, I think as you're saying, Casey, we've got to keep this up. I know it's tiring. It's tiring. COVID is tiring. We're tired of it. Tired of the mask, the whole deal. But we just have to. And I may have shared this somewhere else. So if you've heard this before, I apologize. But I think it was last Monday morning. My wife, we were going over the schedule for the week, and she goes, "Rick, well, what do you got going on?" I said, "Well, I've got 4 or 5, 6, whatever number of meetings." And she said, "Well, how many in person?" And I said, "Well, oddly enough, actually, like 4 of them." And she said, "No, you don't." And that was it. She put the kibosh on in-person meetings. And so, but that was just me being too relaxed. And so we can't do that, people. Listen to my wife, Lisa. Don't have in-person meetings. So anyway, but that's it. And we can get back and talk about the mill now, or we can talk about it later, Casey, whatever you want.
What would you prefer?
I mean, I can mention what I know, which is not a whole lot more probably than has been released in the press, and Abisha may know more than I do, or you may know more than I do, Casey. But so a company out of St. Louis, Missouri, has purchased at least 100 acres of the industrial, 120 acres of the industrial, 4 of multifamily, and about 1.5 of commercial property on the river. So it's super exciting because this company, they're known as Community Development Corporation. Actually, they go by the unfortunate acronym of CDC these days. But anyway, yeah. So their plan is to raise it to the ground, clean it up, and then redevelop it. So, which is exactly what we were hoping for once we realized that it could not again be a paper mill. So hopefully they will be conscientious, and it'll be really huge for the entire region. Certainly not just for Newburgh, but the region. And Abisha knows better than I do about the need for industrial land, but I know Newburgh has been hurting for it for quite a number of years. Not to mention the 200 jobs that we lost when the mill was shuttered in the fall of 2015. So that's the update. The only other thing I know is that they're planning on, at least as far as we've heard, the release stated that they try to get it cleaned up, or at least get all of the buildings that that are going to be taken down done by the end of 2021. So, and they've got tractors and all sorts of stuff out there now. So it looks like they're getting ready to stage it. So that's what I know.
That's wonderfully exciting. And I might add that there's 2 cities represented here that also have, old mill sites or old sites that it would be wonderful to have them have a new lease on life. And I think of that as part of the potential of both the cities of Willamette and Sheridan, some really amazing sites. And so I was going to ask, Abisha, what would you like to add? But yes, I want to keep this going.
We are really excited about the buyers of this property because this is what they do. They actually they stood up a remediation arm of their company many years ago. They go in, they buy these defunct mill site sort of properties. They manage the remediation, and then in partnership with the community, they redevelop those areas. I'm really excited about the work the city of Newburgh has done to create some plans for the riverfront area, incorporating that property, and these new owners are excited to be participating in that development effort. We have been speaking to them about other opportunities in the region because, again, this is the work that they do and they're very good at it. So those of you that have these sites in your area, I'm looking at one or more of you on the camera here, let's touch base real soon and have a follow-up. We should be meeting with those new owners again in November is currently the targeted plan.
Great, and thank you. Abisha, I didn't actually know how much the state had been involved in all of this, the state of Oregon, until I was on a phone call with our regional solutions coordinator, and she gave me a little insight into their role in it too. So it was really nice to know how much of an effort between the city and SEDCOR and the state of Oregon, how many players were involved in really getting this site active and moving forward. And I hope that we can do the same thing in Sheridan, Willamette. All right. Are there any other questions for Mayor Rogers? And Mayor Rogers, I really appreciate the comments about what Lisa says, because I find myself doing that too. Like, oh, well, my wife's like, well, are you going? And like, oh, maybe I'm not going. So thank you for those wise words. I would love to move now to Senator Roblan. Senator Roblan, welcome, and what would you like to tell people today?
And thanks again. Thanks for this program and having the opportunity to talk to all these people up in Yamhill County. I was talking on some people with Polk, and I got it confused with Yamhill and said nice things about you up there in Polk, but it's okay. I think they got past it, but it's only because I spend so much time with Yamhill County that I forget about a little part of Polk, so thanks. But that being said, tonight we have our radio show, as we usually do on Tuesday nights, and we're going to have the director of the agriculture department talking a little bit about what's happening in agriculture, farm workers, all of the different issues that are happening because of COVID and now the fires. And actually, we're going to have a group of business people that represent mostly seafood, some of the trawlers and other people talking about what's happened in that industry during this deal, but also Paul Durant, who is from your county, Durant Winery, to talk a little bit about 2 things. One, how this forest fire issues and the pandemic has affected wine growing in the valley, but also he is doing olives to make olive oil, and we'll talk a little bit about that industry going on in Yamhill County as well. So should be a fun show, and I hope people can tune into that or listen to it later if they want to look on it on Facebook later on. We had a short emergency board meeting last week. There were only 9 issues as opposed to the 60-something that were the time before. Most of them had direct influence on the fire issues and how we're going to try to move forward. And the previous session that we had on our radio show, we had the person who is directing all of the FEMA stuff in Oregon. And his comment was, as many times as he could say it in a half hour, register. Just register, regardless of whether you think you're going to need it or not going to need it. If something impacted you and there was a fire, register with FEMA. You never know when and how, and don't let it be too late and you can't register later. I mean, let's get it taken care of. Talk to your insurance company, figure out where it's going, so that we can make sure everybody gets all that's due to them. We're trying to make sure that we embed FEMA people in our forestry department so we get every penny back that we can from the fire stuff. We talked about that, embedding them in education, because there's a whole lot of things that we're doing with these schools that got damaged, to make sure that we do all the right things and don't do something inadvertently that makes it not possible to get some of that money. So we did some things for schools. We put aside $20 million. There are, I think, 31 schools or sites that have had some kind of an effect. And if it's just smoke damage, insurance companies don't cover that if the building wasn't on fire, if it came from someplace else. Some of them, the buildings were saved, but the smoke damages make them uninhabitable. And so that's where FEMA may come in as a big portion of that resource. So we also put some money out there for individual wells that people might have. So some well testing for individuals and well testing for places with less than 1,000 customers, water systems, because we know that's going to be a problem as the rain's starting now, start washing some of this debris into the waterways. Will that affect our water systems for people, especially the small ones? So we have money put aside for that as well. So this one was all about getting ready and making sure that we had resources in the right places to make sure we can help people individually as well as small groups of people. We're going to do some more of that. They anticipate we will have another meeting next Monday, so of the e-board, to pick up with a couple of things that we didn't do. One of the big issues that counties have been talking about is this issue of buying hotels. The market seems to be pretty good right now. They haven't been doing well lately. And then refitting them into housing units. So that program has a lot of impetus right now because of the wildfires and the loss of thousands of homes, even with a really aggressive working at getting new home starts for low-cost housing. We only did 600 last year. We've lost over 3,000 or 4,000. So we've got a lot of work to do, making sure that we have places in counties for FEMA to set up their trailers and their home housing for the short term. Actually, it'll be semi-long term, because most of this, everybody keeps expressing, is 2 to 3 to 4 years. I mean, it's going to take a while to build back these communities, but trying to figure out how to make sure that we get out of the way and let those things happen and work with counties and others to find sites for that to happen. So all of that is happening. We are also, the conversation is heating up more that there will be another special session after the elections, late November, to maybe take care of some of the policy kinds of things that we can't do in the e-board. So that's kind of what's happening at the state level, keeping engaged with lots of different groups. We had a meeting this morning with the SDCD groups talking about business recovery and the money that's going in. We'll have to wait and see if the federal government does any more help with money, but we have a fair amount of money and still have some to loan. So that's another thing that we expect to bring forth at the next e-board meeting, and that is, as we look around and find out which money has not been spent in the different things we sent out to all these different people, we know it has to be out and going and spent by the end of the year. So the issue is to bring all those monies that didn't seem to work in the areas that we had hoped they would, put them back together and get them out in ways that they actually will be spent, so we don't send it back to the federal government. So any ideas about those kinds of things, please let our offices know. And I think Gomberg and I are both on the e-board, so we will be actively engaged in working on some of those kinds of things. And then the final one, we also had Salazar, who is the director of housing in the state of Oregon, on last week, and we talked about preservation. We had about $20 or $30 million in a lottery bond deal to make sure we don't lose any of the housing we already have. preserving the low-cost housing we have is really, really important. So we lost that money when the lottery went down. The lottery has come back now with about $120 million available. So the issue is, how do we get that on the plate, and whether we'll spend some of that ahead of time. I believe housing is singularly now, it was before, but now it's even a bigger issue with respect to housing for low income and workforce housing. So we need to come up with a plan to help make that happen. And that's where the state can help. So in that structure. Any questions? I'm glad to answer them.
Senator Roblan, thank you. Thank you so much for your time and your comments, particularly on housing. But just one thing, this is more of an offer than it is an actual question, but if there's anything that we can do to help support the efforts toward these housing initiatives, please don't hesitate to ask, because we will be there with bells on. So thank you.
Yeah, if there is one thing that every locality has had a conversation with me about over the last number of years, it is housing. And it doesn't matter the size of the community or whatever, every one of them have a problem, whether on the coast it's expense or getting enough housing units or making sure that people, we don't have everything in day use and weekly rentals. That's been a real problem over there. But finding the place, getting through the restrictions and building them has been really difficult, and we know we need it. So thank you for that, and I will keep that in mind.
Thank you.
And Councilor Menke probably has something she would like to add to that, since this is an area that she has spent a lot of time in, housing specifically.
I know, McMinnville, if there's anything we can do to help too. I mean, it's a huge deal over here, and we gotta keep working on it.
I'm shocked. You care about housing?
Incredibly expensive here.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And I would like to know.
Oh, Abisha has a question. That's awesome. That just makes me feel so important.
Well, I don't know, it's part question, part comment, but I wanted to make sure that you were aware of the Workforce Housing Consortium that exists in the city of Newburgh. Our meetings have been on hiatus since fires hit, frankly, just because everybody's been so busy with other things. But we do have a group of public-private partners that have come together and are looking for the right type of project to approach for a workforce housing project. And one of our concerns several months ago was, as the state was going into reviewing their budget, identifying areas where they could potentially pull funding back. And it looked to us as though the affordable housing programs were going to be hit. So we had a little bit less faith in getting support from the state on a public-private partnership sort of a project that could be used as a model for other communities. If you see that kind of coming back into place, or potentially some funding that we could access for those projects, we sure would be excited to know about what they are. And I would be happy to work with Councilor Menke and others in McMinnville as well to try to replicate that. I've already had these conversations in short term with Scott at MEDP, but we would love to expand this work throughout the county.
Yeah, we'd like to talk with you, our Affordable Housing Committee task force. It'd be lovely to have you come and chat with us and tell us what you could bring. we need all the help we can get, absolutely.
Well, I will fight for funding in all sorts of ways. I know that it seems to be a pretty good rising support for this turnkey issue, which is the one that the counties are trying to support, which will be a public-private partnership as well. But if we can find others, I will be glad to support it, because I know this is a really big issue with regard to all of it. I have brought up Abisha's idea over and over again in meetings I've had about the reality is we used to be a state that had a whole lot of mill towns where all of the housing was owned by the mills, and they provided housing for their workers. We're probably going to have to go back to some kind of thing, and in talking and hearing the conversations that Abisha has talked about and others, it's clear that those kind of partnerships are going to be important in the future if we really expect to meet the needs of workforce now and in the future in Oregon, just because the cost alone is making it really hard for people to get into these homes. So I hope there's also some land trust stuff. There's some really great housing being built in Florence, where they will never own the ground on which the house is. The land trust will own the ground, but they will own the building and they can sell it. And it's a really great way for working families to get that investment in a place, a home, and then sell it to move up into owning their own property and the house. So coming up with some of those creative ideas and making sure they work are really, really important.
That's exciting. Thank you, Senator.
Yep.
Mayor's got another question for you.
Yeah, sorry, Senator Roblan, just another one, in addition to the workforce housing, I guess I'm wearing the right shirt today, which is good. I'm glad I'm wearing the colors, so sorry. But anyway, the other one is that I know that a number of manufactured home parks lost units during the fires and all of this, and replacement is a real challenge. So one thing that I would love to advocate for, I think there's more of this being discussed now, is to try to build stick-built replacement in manufactured home parks. I believe there's currently restrictions on being able to do that. But I say that because I think an organization, say Habitat for Humanity, for instance, could do that in these manufactured home parks, particularly if they were cooperatively owned. So anyway, so if you hear anything on that, I think that's a possibility that we could really make a dent or two in this replacement. So thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And I hope we can find some place in Oregon where they actually might build these kind of mobile homes actually to replace and do some stuff. Oh, maybe Yamhill County.
Yeah. Hey, we have land on a river. We could think about that.
You are so funny, Senator. Yes, let's do this. In fact, when the governor, she calls together county chairs, and when she does, I'm always like, hey, remember Yamhill County has manufactured home builders who can help you in your, this place and this place. And she says, yes, Casey.
And you have her phone number. That's exciting, Casey.
I do. She doesn't respond.
What? That's shocking. She must have given you the wrong number.
But along these lines, I would actually love, since I'm feeling like we're getting into a housing solutions meeting here, I would really love to invite Kenna West to add to the conversation, because I feel like the city of Willamina and the city of Sheridan has some fairly unique perspectives around this. Kenna, would you like to add anything to this?
All right. Well, on housing, actually, Commissioner, as you may know, Yamhill County gave the city of Willamina a nice little chunk of change to update our development code. And one of the reasons we did that is because, or I hope one of the reasons you did that is because you like us, but one of the main reasons is we have 3 mills, 2 in Willamina and 1 in Sheridan. And what I'm hearing from my owners and the mill managers is that their folks can't find housing. They cannot find housing anywhere near where they work. They have people driving from Philomath to come to the Willamina mill and work because they can't find housing. So we are working on, and I think we're one of the only little cities to really be pushing forward strong, but we are pushing forward on a development code change that is focused on allowing that missing middle housing here in Willamina. So we are reducing our lot sizes. We are allowing for cottage clusters. We are allowing for small, not tiny homes, but small homes. We were just talking last week, 600 to 1,100 square foot homes on 3,000 square foot properties with a 0 setback on one side to allow the other side, they could have their personal garden. So we're really looking at some pretty progressive housing, smaller housing. And we're kind of unique because we have a 10 gig fiber. So we can keep our seniors here. We can also draw millennials who can work remotely, which most of us are doing now anyway, and while creating that location for our workers, because driving an hour and a half to work is devastating on their paycheck as well. So we're really working hard on doing that and allowing for different types of housing. So in what would normally be our R1 or our R2, we'll be allowing multifamily housing. We'll be allowing affordable housing. We don't get a lot of NIMBY in Willamina. It's very rare. We're a pretty amazing community. We're all about helping everybody. In fact, I haven't been to these because my city loaned me out to Polk County to as the coordinator for evacuated animal intake, care, and outtake. So we had animals, over 300 animals of Polk County that we took in from the fires. And my team and I are just going out to help someone get back on their property with his therapy horse. He was burned out completely, and we're getting him back on, I hope, this week. So that's my community in a nutshell. And they're really focusing on housing, not just for us, but for our entire region. So that's kind of where we're going. Sheridan, I think, has, TK, do you know, or you guys have housing, that apartment, affordable housing apartment still going in, or Abisha?
As far as I'm aware, but I haven't heard a lot about it recently.
So I'll ask a question. Third-party contracting with regard to having inspectors, do you guys use that, or do you have your own certified inspectors?
We contract with Yamhill County.
Okay, so the county has their inspectors. That's good. Okay, because that's a problem, has been a problem on the coast with a lot of our little cities not having the ability to afford a contract. I'll have to talk to them about maybe having the county do that. So that will, if in fact they change the law and the rules and make it not possible to contract with outside groups. So it's frustrating to me. But
it seems to be working for you. Has it been, Kenna?
Yes, it works very, very well. And in fact, they'll come down to Willamina and go to our pre-app meetings and help our developers to figure out what they can do and how to quickly get housing built. So it's been very, very good for us.
Good. That's good to hear.
And I think one of the things I'm really excited about the City of Willamina's update to the code is I feel like there's two things, right? You're going to create more housing stock and hopefully drive the price of a home down because, you know, it's everything about it is smaller. But you're also going to have more people. And I feel like more people inside of your city limits is going to be a big win for your city. You are, Kenna, you are muted, but I also want to note that it's really Abisha who judged your application for funding worthy. I just signed, and actually I'm left-handed, so I just signed.
Well, I'm glad we were worthy because it's an amazing project, and we have been pushing through as hard as we can to get it done because we want to get that housing in immediately. And in fact, we have two developers that are they're right there. They're clearing land and they're waiting for it to go through, and then they're going to start building. We've got a phase one of a 110 unit housing, and then we've got another 20 unit housing that they're waiting for the smaller lots, and then another 6 to 12 unit subdivision they're waiting for the smaller lots, all to get more housing into Willamina in that missing middle.
Very nice. Thank you. I realize we talked a lot about housing, and I want to make sure that we keep on. We get to talk about other things too. Thank you. It is very exciting to me seeing all the work that all of you have been doing. And I want to go then to Councilor Menke to talk about what you would like to update the city of McMinnville on, and also perhaps provide some of an update on housing in the city, since you are very closely tied to that.
Excuse me, got a lozenge in my mouth. Okay, the big thing today is we're going to be meeting for the $200,000 grant, making selection for grant applicants that we've been working on for a couple of months now. So that's the exciting news of that, and I think they'll be reported out probably in sometime this week or maybe next week. So that's exciting. And then as far as affordable housing, we have no land is our big problem. If we had land, we could do lots of things. And we've considered everything. I mean, we're going with the cottage cluster stuff and the triplexes and duplexes and things. The big news, at least for us at this point in time, is the Housing Authority has purchased land out near the hospital. I think it's about 7 acres, and there's it looks like maybe 200 apartments are going to go in on that property. And so we're very excited about that. And I think most of that will be subsidized housing. Some will be affordable, I think. And then we have another group that's been working on fundraising and some other stuff, and they're also working towards this. We've had a number of church groups really interested, but nobody's been able to quite make it over the barrier. But this group sounds like they might be able to have the potential for funding and stuff. So our big deal is land, and we're hoping to put forward an urban growth boundary expansion by the end of this year. We're coming to talk to you, commissioners, soon, I think, and hopefully you will approve us. So that's where we're at, but we're working hard on it. We've considered everything. We're willing to rezone, do all sorts of stuff. It's just a matter of getting land.
Are there questions for Councilor Menke?
Yeah.
I just have a quick question. Thank you for that update, Councilor. When in regards to your business grant program, do you believe you received enough applicants to expend your entire award allocation?
I need to take a look at it. I'm hoping that we did. I don't know for sure. Okay. I have to still look at it real quick, like before we go into the meeting later today. But we had a good group of applicants, so we were hoping to get maybe 40, 50. So we'll see. And it depends on how many employees they have, how fast we'll use up the money too.
And then, Councilor Menke, do you want to give folks an update, or if you feel comfortable on the McMinnville, YCAP, Newburgh County moteling project, or are you able to? I forget who's keeps track of all of it.
Well, I'm part of the YCAP board, and I know that it's been going well. I think somewhere around 66% or so have found housing. I don't have a current update for you that would be helpful at this point in time. My apologies. I'll check with Alexandra next time before I come to one of these.
That's okay. Sorry to put you on the spot, but I thought it would be good in the context of what Senator Roblan was talking about with an emphasis at the state on purchasing motels that
absolutely
are of lower value. I think in our community, I would personally hesitate to go out and try to buy a motel when I know how valuable they are to the economic activity of the county and at least of the city of McMinnville.
Well, we have a pretty good DMO, so in normal times, I think we do quite well with the hotels. You know, fortunately or unfortunately, however it works out, you know, we have had a number of hotels that have been willing to put up their rooms for us to allow them to get vouchers and things like that.
Yes, yes. Okay.
But our DMO is very effective.
Yes, definitely. And the city of Newburgh also has a motel as part of that project too. So want to acknowledge that and thank you for that. Are there any other questions or comments for Councilor? Okay, great. Thank you very much. She looks a little bit scared.
I had no idea I talked this much.
Abisha, what would you like to tell people today?
Thank you, Commissioner Kula. So a couple of updates. We're still working, of course, really hard with the Rebuild San M group. So the Canyon Fire Recovery Group, there's a large meeting happening tomorrow. We have now over 90 businesses that have signed into that kind of structured consortium of partners that are trying to provide support for redeveloping the Canyon area. As Senator Roblan already expressed, this is a slow process, but it needs to be folks need to be aligned and understand the value of taking time and doing it the right way. We've been made aware by folks that live out there that there are folks kind of trolling and trying to take advantage of people. You know, if you give me $30,000, I'll remove all of the debris from your property without any clue as to where that's all going to go, right? And what's going to be done with it. So we want to make sure that we're getting ahead of that sort of thing and communicating effectively with the residents and business partners out in those areas. First of all, to be aware of those sort of scamming and trolling. And then secondly, what are those real resources for you? So making sure that they get registered with FEMA, making sure that they get registered with the state, offering the proper permissions to do the assessments of the degrees of toxicity that's on their property and whatnot. So again, this is a group that was stood up by Nick Harville, who's my counterpart for Marion County for SEDCOR, and we now have 90 businesses that are signed on that are supporting that redevelopment group. They're meeting tomorrow and talking through some alignment plans with our FEMA representative and some state representatives. So more to come on that. I'll keep you all posted. Want to remind folks out in the community that we do still have our COVID-related business recovery grants that are available through Marion, Polk, and Yamhill County businesses. Willamette Workforce Partnership is standing up that grant program for us. They can be found at willwp.org. One of the things we're currently working through is round 3 funds currently being in the application process, while round 4 funds have landed on our plate. We're very grateful to get another round of funding from the state at $1.1 million for this 3-county region. It's very exciting and it's much needed. Unfortunately, with different access for each of those programs and being launched at the same time, they're now in competition for one another. And we want to make sure that the businesses are accessing as much of the resources as they can as quickly as possible. We do not want to return that money to the state. We understand that it has to be expended by November 16th, and we just found out last week that we had the money, right? So this is a very short period of time. So we have an alignment call with our regional economic development partners this Friday at 11 o'clock. That will also include the individual municipalities who receive funding through round 4 funds. So whomever received round 3 may have been refunded in round 4, so that it's a coordinated effort. Because we don't want round 3 funds to be in competition with round 4 funds, to be in competition with McMinnville funds, to be in competition with the county funds, right? So we're trying to structure all of these programs in a way where they complement each other and they reach as broad of a business community as they possibly can. So that is a pressure that we have, Senator Roblan. We do not want to give that money back. It would be helpful to have a little bit more time, just to be honest with you, and it would be even more helpful if all of those funds had the same accessibility, so to not be competing with each other. So that's my 2 cents there. And but please, for the business community, continue to watch Willamette Workforce Partnership website so that you can access those grant programs. The county will also be standing up their grant program mid-November. I'll have more information in the next week or 2 to share with you on exact timing. I know that Carrie Martin County staff is working very diligently on putting that program together and using their new online portal for accessibility. Remember also that it's not just business grants that the county is standing up. They have a community grant program, which could be really valuable for communities that are looking to stand up wintertime events or an indoor winter marketplace for businesses or something like that. So please look at those grant programs as they come available. Lastly, just a quick update on Project Oasis. I've been sharing this project with all of you for quite some time now, but this is the childcare, the public-private partnership childcare and distance learning facility that is being developed in the city of Newburgh. The business partner is DCI. We've secured some funding from the county at $400,000 for this vital program. The city of Newburgh has also committed funding and is looking at decreasing barriers. Some of those are things like looking at the cost of SDCs for childcare and expediting permitting, right? So we're trying to meet a very urgent need. We're also looking at other projects throughout the county. And for those of you in the West Valley, I have been speaking to an industry partner who is interested in considering a similar type of a project. And they are out in the Sheridan-Willamina area and would like to learn from Project Oasis and see what they might be able to do to replicate something out there. The county's needs assessment should be published later this week. They did the child care needs assessment that got completed, and the draft report was routed last week. I believe we'll see that get published very soon. So be watching for that as well. I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Abisha. I'd like to note that the needs assessment for the county also includes the tribe. The tribal council members asked us, can we find out what the needs are of tribal members? And that's actually across their zip codes. So it's not just exclusively in the West Valley. I think it's so awesome. Questions for Abisha? Thanks for giving us a lot of information. And thank you for all of your work. I want to make sure that Takesha and Kenna, are either of you needing to leave first? Any particular order? Okay, then Kenna West, what would you like to tell people in addition to all the other wonderful things that we talked about? And thank you for your work with all the animals.
Of course, it was pretty amazing, Commissioner, what we all got done together. You know, it really was. So most of what we've been doing is the housing part. We're also moving forward on our transportation system plan, and we're just sending out invitations for our advisory committee, and we're really excited about that because it goes hand in hand with this development code update. So the two are going to be working together to create a extremely livable Willamina and region. And then other than that, you know, we have just been holding open our hand to our neighbors. So we've had a community helping out folks from the Echo Mountain Fire, the Riverside Fire, and of course the Canyon Fire. So that's kind of been where our focus is. And we have set some of our other things on hold as my team and I are spending more time helping those folks that need it right now. And then we'll come back to other projects. And that has been a focus for our council is, you know, we've had some rough times in Willamina and our neighbors were there to help us. So our council wanted to be there for our neighbors. And so that's kind of what we've been doing, housing and helping those that need it.
Very cool. Thank you. Thank you very much. And you also did Willabucks, which have now been replicated in other places too.
We did. We started that. It feels like so long ago, Commissioner. We started that. The amazing businesses here in Willamina donated $10,000. They all came together and donated $10,000. In fact, we just signed checks for about $1,000 that went back to our businesses because our folks were spending money where we hoped they'd spend it, right here in Willamina. And we're actually, well, if council approves it tonight, we're opening up micro grants. So we will have micro grants up to $2,500 for those who've been affected by COVID. So not only do we have the amazing businesses that have put money into Willabuck that help our people, but also the CARES Act funding we're going to put into micro grants. So that will also help our folks to pay mortgage or rent, to get access to schooling and to pay utilities as well. So we've kind of gone the two routes. So thank you for reminding me. It feels like that was so long ago. Thank you.
Do people have other questions or comments for Kenna? Kenna, I wanted to ask too, any updates? How is the project to design and move the water intake for the domestic water? Is that still moving forward?
Absolutely. We're at about 30%, which is pretty amazing given COVID and how that slowed everything down. But we're at 30%. Speaking of tribal, I was just talking to our tribal partners. We're looking at the architectural and cultural review for a very small portion. And we are, amazingly, we are on track and within budget. So that's a pretty exciting place to be.
Kenna, did you submit for an EDA grant on that project?
We did not. That is the design part is fully funded by CDBG. And then the construction, we're already looking at timing on the second CDBG. The full project we think is going to be about $2.5 million. And that includes the line from the water tower to the school, because of course our school definitely needs that to expand. And also because that relief nursery, which Commissioner, that's the other thing, the relief nursery is going to go through. I'm so excited. That was a hard push, but we had a lot of support, and the West Valley Fire District, the fire chief was outstanding, and he came up with a creative solution. So we will have that relief nursery in place.
Great. I was like, we can find tanks if nothing else. But I'm really glad that you were able to do it. That's great. Hooray, hooray. Oh my gosh, there was another question that I had for you that's gone now. Oh, well, maybe it'll come back, because I would also want to hand it over to Keisha to talk about Sheridan revitalization and what's happening in Sheridan.
Okay. Really just a short thing, because there's been a lot of events canceled, of course. So a couple of groups, I think it was the city and the Nazarene Church, put together trunk or treat. So that we'll still be having a Halloween activity. And that's obviously it's on the 31st, and you can find out information. I posted up on the Sheridan Chamber Facebook page. Also, if you go to the City of Sheridan's website, you can still register, I believe, to be a trunk there. And you can get information also on the route. I believe it's from Nazarene down to the Railroad Street, and they'll have locations all along there. And revitalization is still working on the plan for the next Solve cleanup. So I'll get that information out as soon as I have that finalized, and all the updates on the bridge lighting and the Christmas in Sheridan plans. It's all really positive, very exciting about that, and it was really great. It's been really great, all of the volunteers, because sometimes you have volunteer burnout, and it seems like there's a resurgence in Sheridan, which is super exciting. Yeah.
That's wonderful. And the commissioners and I talked about modeling. So this is really related. It might not sound like it at first, but modeling a wildfire prevention and preparation day in the spring on the Deschutes County's program. And that's their program is really around getting all of the debris, the burnable debris out from around people's homes, and then taking it to specific locations, whether that be a landfill or a recology kind of composting facility, primarily so that we don't have 1,000 burn piles all over. Well, for them, it was all over Deschutes County, but for us, we don't have 1,000 burn piles. And I'm wondering whether it might be good to coordinate a spring cleanup in Sheridan with a wildfire prevention time.
Yeah, that would be great.
And that way it gets a little bit more interest and consciousness for everybody of one and the other.
Yeah.
And Kenna has unmuted herself.
Willamina too, Willamina and Sheridan. We could do a West Valley, kind of tie it together, because that would be absolutely wonderful.
Awesome. All right, we know what we're working. Well, I know what I'm working on now. And I remembered what I was going to mention about Willamina is that the County Public Works and your Public Works Department and Hampton and the railroad have all been working together really well on making that intersection that comes on Willamina Creek Road into town safer. And I just want to put out there that our Public Works folks think that yours are really awesome. So good job. Way to be a supervisor. Okay, are there any other questions or comments for Takesha? All right, thank you for joining us. And we were talking about making sure we can get Mayor Cooley on as well. I think that Fridays were working better for him, but we will work on that. All right, any last thoughts? I would like to note that today is the last day to register to vote in Oregon. It's October 13th. However, and I was wrong about this. If you are registered to vote, you can update your voter registration, contact information, where your permanent residence is, up to and into Election Day. So as long as you're in the pool, you can update it. And that's a really important thing to know for folks who have been displaced by fires, such as the Echo Mountain Complex, is that if they are registered to vote and ever have been, then all they need to do is be updating their voter registration. It's a big time. We're coming up on it, but we have a great system here in Oregon. And I was realizing that I was a kid, a wee laddie, the last time there was just normal voting in person. So it's really my whole life in Oregon. And I've been through 2 elections in Washington State, and it's not nearly as much fun to stand in line in the dark and the rain. Let me tell you, I did that, and it's It's much better to do this. All right. Cases are going up in our county, but all the people who are here to work for you, whether it be in reducing the transmission of the virus or recovering from the economic effects of it, getting people housed, and getting us more vital. So reach out to them if you need something, and we will see you next Tuesday. Thank you, everybody.